Welcome to C&S-Sports Cast, everyone. I'm Sam Deering. He's Christian John, and we're excited to have you with us. Just so you're all aware, we are writers for Cream City Central, a Wisconsin-based sports website. Yes, this means we are Wisconsin fans, but we will keep our biases at the door. We are ready to talk about everything sports.
And let's get into it with March Madness, the first round, and what we expected.
I'll be honest with you, I was usually anything happens with March Madness. There's not many upsets, and we were just watching this before we went on air. Do we know is that Tennessee game? What's the score of that? Because they're in overtime right now.
It's looking like Purdue's going to win.
Really? Okay. So
it's looking like Purdue's going to win.
That's good. Okay. So, I didn't expect many upsets, or I did expect a lot of upsets. To be honest, there just doesn't seem as much as previous years. So why don't we, talk about the first round? Is there anything, Christian, that you expected, or?
I mean, really, I expected Zion to have two really good games, and he did. But I also expected more upsets, and I was kind of disappointed with how that first round happened. There weren't a lot of buzzer beaters. It wasn't as exciting as it's been.
Right, and usually there's a Cinderella team, and there's the teams that are surprising us, I guess, not surprising, are the higher ranked teams, like them deserving to be high. And I guess we'll go on to the rankings. Is there any team that you think that did not deserve their ranking? Either they should have been higher or lower. And I have two or three in mind. I'll let you go first.
For me, Oregon, they didn't play great during the season, but they're still Power 5 team that won their conference tournament. A 12 seed's pretty low.
Exactly. I top off of that because that's one of my teams. They're a 12 seed playing a 5, but then again, they came into this tournament hot, and now they're about to play Virginia, who I think they have a very good chance of winning. I'll be honest, my bracket that I made, I didn't have Virginia. I had them losing to Oklahoma just because I had them winning all the way, or winning the entire thing last year, and they lost to USC. And I guess they won their conference tournament. They beat Washington. So they're coming into this tournament with a lot of momentum on their side. And my second team is Wisconsin. Before, it's funny because we said we were Wisconsin-based sports fans. Their team just looks beat up. Ethan Happ, obviously the star of the team. Like, they have their moments, him, Khalil Iverson. But that team just looks beat up. I don't think they deserved a 5 seed at all. And my third team is Kansas. And Purdue definitely showed Kansas just how good they are. And I think they should have been way lower than a 4, at least a 6 or a 7. And I don't think they should have been higher than Auburn, because I think Auburn came into this tournament hot, beating Tennessee by 20 in the championship game of their conference.
I would agree with all those, especially Wisconsin. Wisconsin kind of felt like a Tyler Hero away from being really good this year.
Exactly, yeah. So I guess when we go to the Elite Eight, or I guess Sweet 16. So, top of my head, the Gonzaga, they were pretty close to. They were down. They were only up by 5 at one point. And I have Gonzaga winning my entire bracket.
As do I.
Do you Did anything surprise you about that? I mean, they ended up being a little bit of a blowout, I guess. Towards the end, I don't recall the score, but is there anything that surprised you about that game, or just what you expected? Or
I expected Gonzaga to win, but Florida State held on a lot better than I thought they would.
Right.
And I do think that's more of a testament to Florida State. I think that team was pretty good. They just flew under the radar most of the season.
I agree. Yeah. And then Tennessee and Purdue. I have Purdue in the Final Four. What is your take on that game? You said Purdue's looking like they're going to win that game in OT. Did that, as close as that game was, did you expect that? I did.
I thought it would be a close game. I thought Tennessee was going to win for sure.
Yeah.
But
Where do you have Tennessee in your bracket?
I had them losing to Gonzaga in the championship.
Really? Okay. Okay. So actually, why don't we make this easier? What's your Final Four?
I have Houston, Tennessee, Duke, and Gonzaga.
Okay. So I'll be honest with you. Tennessee, they seem like a fluke team to me. They're very impressive. But after coming into this tournament, losing by 20 to Auburn, to actually a former, I just saw this today. Who's Auburn's coach? Remind me.
Bruce Pearl.
Yes, Bruce Pearl. Former Wisconsin, because I just saw this on Twitter today.
Well, they're Milwaukee coach.
Right, yeah. They're coming in that tournament with a 20-point loss against Auburn, who's very impressive, but like with a team that's like finished top 5, they were top 3, top 5 in the country. I don't know. I'm not sold on Tennessee. I have Purdue in my Final Four, and I had them making a run, and I'm glad they won.
I just chalked up that loss to Auburn as that game against Kentucky that Tennessee had the day before kind of took a lot out of them. And at that point, that was kind of their championship game, was how it seemed they were playing it. So they kind of just had a write-in against Auburn. But obviously I was wrong because...
So I guess right before, because we're going to go into NBA next, before that, what players are surprising you right now, or what did you expect from players?
Ja Morant. Ja Morant was just so impressive against Marquette. Absolutely. He was on another planet.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna agree with that. He looked very impressive. I'm gonna say Zion. That dude, and like I've said this to people before, he's gonna be there's people saying he's gonna be the next LeBron. And I agree with you were saying before, if there's anyone in our generation that can do it, it's him. But I don't know. Like I don't know. I don't want to say he's a hit or miss player, but I think people are gonna eventually figure him out. But that doesn't mean he's not impressive, because he is an unreal athlete. He like Taco Fall, and like if Taco Fall went to foul out that game with UCF, that game would have been theirs. And I don't know how that ball doesn't tip in, especially with Taco Fall. Like if he would have been in that game was theirs. And for Zion to handle Taco Fall like that throughout that entire game and be unstoppable, that's impressive to me. Like that.
I agree 100%.
That is the top performer of right there.
I would agree with that.
Exactly. So moving on to NBA. What are your? I guess we'll start out. What are your MVP predictions?
I know he said we're leaving biases at the door, and I'm about to pick a Milwaukee guy, but for me it has to be Giannis. Best player, best team.
Exactly. Right, and you probably saw this. A lot of people have. I saw this stat line it was a few weeks ago. Giannis's stats are better than LeBron's when LeBron was at the peak of his career. And Giannis is only 24, and that's just unreal. It's very impressive. And the only player that I would not complain if he got MVP over LeBron, or not LeBron, sorry, over Giannis, is James Harden. And I think LeBron will still be in the top 3, or actually top 5, because I think Curry will probably be 3. But James Harden is averaging like 30-ish points a game, 30 to 35 points a game, and sometimes they're still losing those games. And the fact, I don't know, like the fact that like Giannis has more guys around him, more talent around him than Houston, because Houston, like, there's times in this season where there's such an injury-prone team, and James Harden is still getting the job done. And Giannis is again biased. Giannis is well deserving of this MVP title this year, but if it's James Harden, like you can't complain at all.
See, I do kind of have a bit of a problem with the Giannis has more talent comment. Chris Paul is still a very, very good player.
I agree.
And if you could pick Chris Paul or Chris Middleton, I don't think you're going to pick Chris Middleton.
Oh, exactly. Like,
so Clint Capella is very good, and Eric Gordon's a very good 3-point shooter.
Let's just say, because Chris Paul is hurt for the longest time, even Clint Capella. I just feel like Houston deals with injuries a lot more than Milwaukee. Now you could say otherwise now because DiVincenzo's out, Malcolm Brogdon's out. I think Pau Gasol's out this season, but
Nico's out for 2 to 4 weeks.
Right. And of course, like towards the end of the season, the Bucks are just getting like all the injuries now, but yeah. So, battle for 8th seed in the East. Who's got it?
This has been a lot of fun. It just flip-flopped back tonight. Orlando did have a half a game lead, but now Miami has a half a game lead over them again. So I think
want Miami bad.
I think this is a 3-team race between Charlotte, who's a game and a half back of Miami, and then Orlando, who's a half game back of Miami. But Orlando has the tiebreaker over them.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it's. I don't know. I think the Bucks sweep whoever gets the 8th seed.
Oh yeah,
honestly, but
and
I think it'll be.
I guess who for the number 1 seed in the East? Which of those teams would be the toughest for that 8th seed to beat?
The Bucks have always struggled against Miami, so I find it hard to not say Miami.
I was going to say because I feel like Orlando would be the easiest team, just because they probably have the least amount of talent of all those 3 teams. And
I would agree.
I want the Heat because it's Dwayne Wade's last career. You got to go on a bang. But then again, Kemba Walker, man, like I want to see him in the playoffs.
I was gonna say, when has Kemba Walker played in the playoffs?
It's been a while, and like he's well deserving of it. And I thought I saw a rumor last year that the Cavs were gonna trade for him, and like that would be amazing. Like, because Colin Sexton is having a pretty solid year, and he's the perfect start for a rebuild. But if you got Kemba Walker, man, like
Kemba, and now they're gonna have probably a top 5 pick.
Exactly. Like, and you're like on the verge of getting what? Like, I think they're sitting in the top 3 right now. So you could even.
I think you're right.
They are. Yeah. I think they're sitting at 2 actually. So they're probably going to get, I don't know. I've seen RJ Barrett, but Ja Morant, after this tournament, Ja Morant is the number 1 worthy player, but it's obviously going to be Zion. But I think they're going to go for Ja. Like, you have to at this point. Like, especially after that performance.
With how bare that roster is for talent, I think you're right. You have to go with the best player you can get.
Exactly, yeah. Like, and like I've said this before, Zion is the Saquon Barkley of this draft. Like, Saquon Barkley was the best player in that draft. Zion is the best player. Like, it's to the point for the Cavs where you have to take the best player available, and it's Ja Morant.
I agree.
And like, it's close. It's very close. And I think we've talked about this before. If you compare the 3 Duke guys, Reddish, Zion, and RJ Barrett, Zion's more athletic. But if you're talking about talent-wise, it's RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett is the most talented player on that Duke Blue Devil team.
I have a soft spot in my heart for some reason for RJ Barrett. I love his game. And I think he's going to be the 3rd pick in the draft, and I think whoever has that pick,
it's Phoenix,
is going to be dancing.
I think it's Phoenix.
Well, the lottery though.
True, but
so we don't really know.
That would be unreal for Phoenix though. Like, we got DeAndre Ayton. They just traded for Kelly Oubre and Devin Booker and RJ Barrett.
That's a nice wing combo.
And
right there.
Like the beginning of the year, I was like Trae Young and RJ Barrett, and actually, as long as we're talking about NBA, who do you got for Rookie of the Year?
A couple weeks ago, it was undoubtedly Luka, but man, has Trae come on strong.
He's right, man. Like, at this point, it's going to be between 2 of those 2, and it's close. I think the first half of the season, Luka Doncic had that on lock. He had that locked in.
Yep.
And I guess I'll ask you, I wonder this to myself. Part of me thinks that Porzingis is starting to take the I guess the fame of the shadow of Dallas.
Which is crazy to think that he hasn't played, but everybody's just talking about how he's in Dallas and
right.
he hasn't stepped on court with Luka, but everybody's still talking about Kristaps.
And when is the last you don't even hear about his stat lines anymore.
No.
Which is surprising too. Like him and Doncic, and I don't know, it's just unbelievable. It's very surprising. Especially Porzingis coming from a weak team like the Knicks, and I guess why don't we save this for? We can save the off-season stuff when it gets closer.
Yeah.
Let's go to NBA Finals predictions.
Who you got?
I got Bucks Warriors, and I know the Warriors are not as strong as they are in previous years, but when it comes to playoffs, you don't mess with them. Like Curry is one of the most unstoppable players in the playoffs. And especially now that you don't have LeBron. LeBron was their biggest threat in the playoffs. And to be honest, I thought the Lakers were going to make the first round of the playoffs and just get canned first round. But that Lakers team's just all sorts of messed up. And Luke Walton's going to be gone. And I'm hoping. I've seen two candidates the past few days. The number one was Jason Kidd, and number two was Tyronn Lue. Now, at that point,
just great coaches
and front office, unbelievable. I'll take this from Stephen A. Stephen A. was saying, I think he said this at the beginning of the year. If you don't do anything this offseason and sign the list of at least KD or Kawhi, you're terrible. What are you doing as a GM? And I agree with that. You need help around him. And that is my guess of what they were doing. They're saving all their money for this offseason. And the fact that people were saying they're going to trade LeBron, and there's Lakers fans saying signing LeBron was the worst thing that's ever happened to them. And I don't know.
They didn't want to see what the season would have been like without LeBron then.
Right. And they would have been.
If LeBron doesn't get hurt, it's an entirely different season as well.
I think they should have used that trade deadline. I don't know. They should have used it more wisely because, they got more depth, but really, did they really get any playmakers? No, they didn't.
I think the worst thing they did at the trade deadline was they really let New Orleans play them like a fiddle with the Anthony Davis situation, and it just ruined the young kids.
Let's talk about
Kuz and Brandon Ingram.
The Pelicans are just stupid. So the fact that the Lakers gave him 2 first-round picks. They gave him basically they're almost their starting 5 and 1 or 2 first-round picks. If I'm the Pelicans, I would take that in a heartbeat.
See, I disagree just because now Boston can get into this race, and I would rather have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown if I could get those. If that's what New Orleans was thinking, and they think they could get those 2 guys, I think you go get those 2 guys.
And I think go ahead.
I think Jason Tatum has a better career than Kyle Kuzma, Alonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram. I think he has a better career than all of them.
I 100% agree. I never thought Lonzo Ball was anything special. I think they should have traded Brandon Ingram a long time ago. And for Anthony Davis, I think at this point, because he's done in 2020, so he has 1 more year left.
Oh, he's not going to be on that team past July.
Oh, yeah. No, I think he'll be – you got to trade him. Otherwise, he's going to try to pull a Kawhi Leonard and threaten to sit out. And, again, let's talk about the offseason stuff when we get closer and move on to what should be a national holiday opening day.
Oh, great day. I went to the Brewer game today. It was fantastic. Lorenzo Kane, not today. Just great. I have goosebumps thinking about it. But
before we get into that, there's two key pitchers that are still on the market. There's Kimbrel, who wants a $100 million contract, and the Brewers and the Braves are the top front runners to get him. And Dallas Keuchel, who wants a long-term contract. And at this point, I agree with what you said. If the Braves wanted either of those guys, I think they're in on both of them, they would have signed them already. And I think at this point, Keuchel's going to go back to Houston. And I'll be biased. I'm still upset that our Brewers got rid of Wade Miley for only a $4.5 million contract. We could have signed him for that. And we let go of Gio, who is now sitting in the AAA in the Yankees. And I guess I'll ask you this. Where are Kimbrel and Keuchel going, and how long do they wait out before they sign a contract?
I do not know the answer to this anymore. I was not expecting to. I mean, Craig Kimbrel's a Hall of Fame closer.
Absolutely.
Dallas Keuchel's, and he's won a championship. He's still got something left in the tank. So I do not know the answer to this question anymore. I figured both of them would be on teams at least by opening day.
Right.
I think you're right. I think Keuchel has to go back to Houston, right? I mean, where else would he go?
Right. And like the fact that like they only gave Miley a $4.5, like they paid Bregman, which that could be stopping them. And did they sign Verlander too?
Yeah, they gave Verlander an extension, but
how big?
I don't think either of that really has deterred them. I have heard, and I think Ken Rosenthal has reported that they have two offers out for Dallas Keuchel. One's a 2-year and one's a 1-year deal, but he's kind of not budging on this. He wants a long-term contract, but at some point, when do you say enough's enough?
Right, and like I think at this point, from what I've heard, I think Kimbrel has like bumped it down just because he knows at this point it's opening day. Like everyone has all their starters and their relievers and they have their rotations. That he knows he's not going to get that kind of money at this point, especially since the season's already like it's starting. And as a Brewer fan, Knebel is gone, and like it's tough. I want him, but definitely not at that contract. And I think the Braves need him bad too. And the Braves did not look that like they didn't look too hot today. But then again, it's game 1. They didn't look too hot today against the Phillies.
I was gonna say I don't think we should be gut checking game 1 though.
Right.
But I definitely think both teams could use Craig Kimbrel. I mean, right. I still think he's got something to give, but I do think the way he pitched in the World Series, you worry about a closer who's getting this old and he's asking for an egregiously long contract for an insane amount of money.
Right.
I almost feel like owners are shaming him and just kind of making him sit out to dry at the moment, which I do think is a problem, but
now what are we expecting from each team? Let's start with the Brewers. We found out that Knebel has a UCL injury, and he's most likely done for the year. Chase Anderson is moved to the bullpen, and actually Junior Guerra is staying in the bullpen, which is Junior Guerra looks a lot more impressive in the bullpen. He and the young guys. What are we expecting from this new young core of rotations?
I don't know how to feel quite yet. Freddie Peralta is the only one of the 3 of Woodruff, Peralta, and Burns who has had success in the major leagues as a starter, and it wasn't much. I've said this to you before off air, and I think that this is a very boomer bust move that the Brewers did. I think Chase Anderson starting would have been safer, but I don't think I think that raises our floor, but this having all three young kids raises your ceiling?
Let's talk about that. So, when Jeffers comes back, because Josh Hader's the closer now, and I think I think Chase Anderson gets moved to the bullpen before Guerra, and I think at this point, Junior Guerra's a permanent bullpen guy, and Zach Davies is an injury. I'm sorry, not Jeremy Jeffers, Jimmy Nelson. When Jimmy Nelson comes back, who do you move? I would move Chase Anderson up, or Jimmy Nelson and Zach Davies down to the bullpen. Zach Davies is sitting at 5 in the rotation. He is probably the most injury-prone pitcher on that starting rotation. And Woodruff had a pretty exceptional spring training. He played solid. And Corbin Burns had his moments. I think I think he came into opening day with under a 3 ERA, so he improved a lot towards the end of spring training. But I personally think that if Jimmy Nelson comes back, because we already know you're losing Brent Suter for the year from Tommy John. When Jimmy Nelson comes back, you bring him into the 4 or the 5, and you move Davies to the bullpen and see how that works out.
I personally believe that when Jimmy Nelson comes back, he should pitch out of the bullpen to start.
Yeah.
He hasn't faced a major league hitter in an actual game in almost 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I just think you pitch him out of the bullpen and see how he does there. And then if he's proving that he can get major league hitters out still, then I think that's when you discuss moving him back into the rotation. And I think because there is going to be time. You're going to have time until you have to make this decision. So I think at that point, you just make your decision based on which young starting pitcher or Davies.
Take it slow.
Yeah, right. This isn't something they have to do tomorrow. They have time to make this decision.
And Jeffers is hurt until he'll be back late April to early May. Now, he's normally the closer, and you could tell from the play at the NLCS game that he was definitely hurt. And I think they kind of figured that he was going to miss quite a bit some time coming into the season. Because Josh Hader, the man he is, of course, still looked impressive. If he looks like this, you got to keep Jeffers in the bullpen, or you got to keep him as a reliever. You got to put him right before Hader. If Hader's still this hot, if he keeps up this consistency from today, up until when Jeffers comes back, you got to keep him. You got to keep Jeffers or Hader as your closer, and you got to keep Jeffers. You got to move Jeffers back.
I would agree. I think that's another thing though, where you have time to make that decision.
At the beginning of the season, right?
You have until May, probably. But right. All right, the next team is your favorite team. I know you love the Yankees so much.
Yeah.
What are we expecting out of the Yankees this season,
Sam?
Sam?
From spring training, I'll be honest, Aaron Judge and Stanton played very well in spring training, and from our next team, I look at the same way you look at this next team. I look at this team. The Yankees can do whatever they want. They will not win a World Series. They will win their division. I don't know, because Boston. Who has Boston lost any key player? Boston hasn't lost any key players, especially from that World Series.
Craig Kimbrell.
Well, yeah, but
they lost their closer.
Right. I don't know.
That's a big one.
Because people think that they're going to walk their way into that World Series. I don't know, because Aaron Judge, and I talked to my friend before, people figure out Aaron Judge and Stanton. Look what they did last year. The people in their division, the Rays, probably it's between them and the Orioles, the youngest squad in that division. They figured them out. Aaron Judge and Stanton, when Stanton signed that big contract with the Yankees, the two best hitters in baseball on one team. And look what they did. Look how they performed last year. Nothing. They barely did anything. You know why? Because pitchers figured them out. And I don't want to talk down because they're easily still like one of the top 5 players at their position. And their rotation, I think that rotation is still going to be one of the best rotations in the MLB this year when they're all healthy. Because Tanaka was pitching today, and personally, I didn't see how did. I know the Yankees just destroyed because they played the Orioles, who are in rebuild.
I think a high school baseball team could beat that Orioles team though. So,
I mean, I don't know at that point.
But I do. I know I've had this conversation with you off air many a times, and I am one of the people that thinks the Yankees is going to the World Series. That once Severino comes back, you have him, Tanaka, James Paxton.
Right.
They have the best bullpen in baseball.
Right. Like once their rotation's healthy, they're going to be lethal. They're going to be lethal, and I have yet to pick a team because I think the Astros are still going to come in hot. I think the Astros could be another AL team to beat. Now, the next team's your favorite team, the Philadelphia Phillies. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I don't think, and I've had this stance my whole baseball watching career, as long as Bryce Harper's been a thing. I don't think much of Bryce Harper. I mean, he's good, and I get that he's good, but I don't think he's a 13-year contract kind of guy.
See about that. So the two biggest names in baseball, I guess one of them, besides Mike Trout, obviously. I don't know. Like I think the Padres, who we're going to get to, I think the Padres played it way smarter with the contract with Machado because Machado, I guess they both ways because Machado can opt out after 5 years, and Bryce Harper can't opt out in his, what is it? It's 10 years, right? Yeah, 10 years.
No, Bryce Harper has no opt-outs.
Right.
He's going to be in Philly for 13. But Machado is 10.
It's 13. Yeah. It's 13. So he's gonna retire Philly.
Maybe.
That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know. You think it could be a national still?
What happens if the Phillies are really bad in 5 years?
Right. It could go both ways because what if he gets a ring in Philly? If he gets a ring in Philly, there's no doubt he's retiring as a Philly. But if they're really bad in 5 years, he can't opt out.
Right.
He can only hope they trade him.
Right, and I think...
Or they let him go, which is not going to happen.
Yeah, I just do think that now the Phillies gave him this leverage that if things go bad and guys like Real Muto leave in free agency, that he can just kind of stamp his feet and they'll do whatever he wants.
Now, I mean, I think, I don't know. Like, I really don't know what to think about the Phillies. I'm not too sold on them yet. And I think they're going to be a team to watch still in the NL. They had some Andrew McCutchen. They re-signed Aaron Nola. They signed JT Realmuto. And obviously Bryce Harper.
And they got Gene Segura. Right.
And who's obviously been impressive. What do you know as soon as he leaves Milwaukee? Because that's what it's odd that the Brewers players, whenever they leave, they end up playing well again.
But there was no space for him with Arcia, but that's a conversation for a different day.
Right.
Let's go on to the bane of my existence.
Chicago Cubs. So let's start with the pitching rotation. Yes, their pitching rotation. I had this conversation with my friend. Their rotation, I wouldn't say it blows us out of the water, but their starting rotation definitely beats ours. But we have a young core. So, and besides Chacin, Woodruff and Corbin Burns still have yet to prove themselves. And I mean Freddie P, but like Freddie P started off in the bullpen, but like as starting pitchers, Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff still have yet to prove themselves. Whereas you have a Cubs team who has Jose Quintana, Yu Darvish, who I don't think is going to be. I don't even. Where is he sitting in the rotation?
I honestly have no clue.
I have no clue. I don't know because their starter was John Lester today, and I don't know because they played
the Rangers.
Well, yeah, that's right. Never. Okay, they destroyed. It's the Rangers.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's like beating the Orioles.
I'm thinking of I'm thinking of the other divisional game, but Yu Darvish is coming off a. Was it Tommy John? Right, it's Tommy John.
It was something with his shoulder or his forearm. I don't know.
But
he couldn't throw a baseball.
They lost him for the playoffs. So at this point, and like they gave him, I don't understand. Like the Cubs had all these top prospects and they trade them away, and now they're paying Yu Darvish like over $100 million. I don't think Yu Darvish is going to be as good as Cubs fans think they are. And Cubs, Chris Bryant, I think he could still be an MVP candidate. I don't think he's gonna get MVP. I'll tell you who to watch for the MVP. If it's obviously Christian Yelich, Mookie Betts, Anthony Rendon. Bryce Harper's gone, and now Anthony Rendon is still one of their top players with Bryce Harper. I think he's definitely going to be a player to watch in the NL for the MVP. Let's go back to the Cubs though. Their bullpen, their best pitcher in their bullpen is Brandon Morrow. And he's coming into opening day today. He's still hurt. And that bullpen is very weak compared to the Brewers, who have one of the best bullpens, a top 3 bullpen in baseball. And I think it's going to be close. I will predict this division. And I'm not going to, I know we said Wisconsin sports, but the only team that I can see taking over Milwaukee for the division is St. Louis, because they have a healthy team and I know it's day one, but Colton Wong had 2 homers today, and their rotation was healthy. They came in with barely any injuries, whereas you have Yu Darvish coming off an injury. You have Brandon Morrow still hurt. I think the Cubs take 3rd place, and I think we're either going to see 3 NL Central teams in the playoffs or 2, and Chicago doesn't make it. And I want to add this team. Same NL Central team, Cincinnati Reds. I want to hear your thoughts.
I like what the Reds did in the offseason. I really do. I know you're not a big Yasiel Puig fan, but I do think he could be really good this season in a contract year with the Reds. And now he's in a much hitter-friendlier park. Their offense could just be so good this year. And if they get anything from their pitching staff, I think they could be very scary. And now they have Derek Johnson and Lee Tunnell on that staff.
See, the good thing about that is Derek Johnson now has Sonny Gray, who he coached at Vanderbilt with. He coached at Vanderbilt. Actually, Sonny Gray's probably sitting 2 or 3 in that rotation, or did he start today? I honestly didn't see.
No, Luis Castillo started today. Okay. The thing about that is Sonny Gray, and I get the connection with Derek Johnson's very strong, but Sonny Gray is going to need to prove to me he can get out major league hitters again. And he was awful in New York.
He was terrible in New York. I will agree with that. But look at him in Oakland, straight from Vanderbilt, because he was drafted in A, right? I believe he was drafted in A.
I'm pretty sure.
So I think him coming back to his coach that made him the player that he is today, I think that's going to help him get back on his feet. And I
don't think Great American Ballpark's another good ballpark for him, though. I mean, the A's have a very pitcher-friendly park, and I do think that's something that should concern people. I do think Sonny Gray could be very, very good as well. but for me, he has to prove it. He has not been very good.
I agree, but I'm high on him. I think he would have been nice in Milwaukee, especially now that there are a lot of injury guys. So right, so Sonny Gray. Like I said before, I think it's going to help a lot that he's with his former coach. Now, let's go on to players with new contracts. You got Manny Machado on the Padres. You got Bryce Harper on the Phillies. Let's start. So, what are we expecting? So, what are we expecting from Bryce Harper on the Phillies? Is he going to outperform? His stats in Washington? Is he going to do better? Is he going to be the same, worse? And I know you.
Again, I'm not a Bryce guy, so this is tough
you're not
for
a huge Bryce Harper guy because you're saying he's regressing. He's still a top guy in the league.
Yeah,
and I agree. Like, if you get rid of the ego, Manny Machado, no question that I would rather pay. I would not pay any of these players the amount of money that they're paying. The only player that I would give the big money to is Mike Trout because Mike Trout is well deserving of that money.
And thank God he got it.
Right. And personally, I'm surprised that they did not offer him close to $500 million.
They didn't have to, obviously. I do think these players say they want to win, and then they sign these insane contracts, and it just hurts a team's payroll, and it can totally hamstring a franchise.
Yeah.
But I do think I think we can lump a couple of guys together here, and that would be Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, and Patrick Corbin with the Nationals. I think all three of those guys, they're all good players, but I don't think any of them will be able to outperform the ginormous contracts they've signed.
Right. And yeah, I completely agree. And there's other players. Let me think. Oh, so James Paxton, Alex Wood. What about James Paxton? What are we expecting from him?
James Paxton's really good. And I don't think a lot of people knew that because he pitched
I don't think
in
they
Seattle.
gave him right, and they didn't give him the credit he deserved.
And I think now that he's going to get to pitch in New York, and he's going
to have a lot of. He's
not going to face a lot of. Yeah, I think James Paxton has a really good year, and I think a lot of people are going to be saying that, wow, where did this come from? But realistically, James Paxton's been good for a while. He just needs to stay healthy.
Yeah, right. So actually, why don't we go? We talked about this before. What about Yasiel Puig and Matt Kemp? I don't consider Yasiel Puig a top 5 at his position. Matt Kemp, obviously, he's had a great career. But Matt Kemp, yes, he played very well last year in LA. But he's in his 30s. He early to mid 30s, isn't he? He's close to Braun, isn't he? Because Braun's like 35, and he's 34. So the fact that people think, oh, he's back in his prime, oh, Matt Kemp is back, no. And I think yes, I agree. Like, I think it's going to help that he's in a hitter's ballpark, but I don't think he's going to hit. I don't think he's going to be nearly as good as what he actually produced in his prime, obviously. And obviously the Reds are back on track, and I think these transactions helped this offseason for them. But I really don't know. I've seen comments from saying, "Oh, the Reds have the best outfield in the NL." I mean, dude, do you watch baseball? No, no. And they'd be lucky to get in the top 5 of the outfielders in the NFL. And I think they could play well because they're going to be in Cincinnati over LA. But we'll see if they get the attention because they're in Cincinnati. Cincinnati has one of the best farm systems in the league. Like why do you think they're like they have all the assets to trade for all these players? Even Alex Wood. Alex Wood, he came in coming off of like a minor injury, but Alex Wood I think is going to be a good pickup too for them as well. And why don't we go to divisional predictions? So let's
You just want to
start.
do winners?
Yep, let's just start with the winners. So let's start with the American League East. I've got the Yankees.
Same here. I just think that team's so much more talented now than Boston. Boston's bullpen is a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think Tampa Bay could be an absolute darling.
I think Tampa Bay has a shot at a wild card.
So do I.
Because they I think they surprised a lot of people last year. And especially with that young team. And like they have a lot of talented prospects coming up as well. And it's going to be between New York and Boston, obviously, because Baltimore's on a rebuild. Tampa could be up there. Toronto, I don't think. Toronto, I think will take fourth. So, AL Central, who do you got?
All right, this one I went rogue probably. I think you're probably going to have Cleveland, but I
have
have
Cleveland.
I have the Twins. Jose Barrios is a guy I absolutely adore as a starting pitcher, and I think Marwin Gonzalez and Nelson Cruz are going to prove to be two of the biggest acquisitions this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, give me Minnesota. Second will be Cleveland, but I don't think Cleveland makes the playoffs. Their outfield is horrendous.
Interesting, because they signed Cargo, which I think could be.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's old, but that could be. It could be interesting.
It could be.
I don't think they're going to go anywhere. I don't think they're nearly as strong as they have been, especially in the playoffs. But so, AL West, I've got Houston.
Oh, for sure. Same here.
Absolutely. I think
I don't think it's close.
They're a team to watch in the World Series. It's not even close.
I agree. National League East, who you got?
This is tough. This is really tough. I think the Phillies have a shot. Otherwise, I'm going to say the Braves. I think it's going to be between Philly and the Braves.
I'm
going to give it to the Braves.
I badmouthed
the Phillies.
Oh, sorry. I badmouthed the Phillies a lot today, so I'm going to go with the Phillies here. I do like Gene Segura pickup. I do like the Andrew McCutchen pickup, and I like the JT Realmuto pickup a lot. I think their team's just too good for Atlanta, especially with Aaron Nola and David Robertson now in the bullpen.
Yeah, I think it's going to be close.
Aaron Nola could win Cy Young.
Atlanta also did not look good at all. They did not.
It's
day one, but
it's
day one again, right? But they didn't look too hot today. So NL Central, I've got Milwaukee.
All right, I came into the day, and like I said, I was at opening day today, and I came into the day having St. Louis, and just the way that this game went, it felt like last year to me. So I'm gonna get nostalgic, and I'm gonna grab my bias from the door real quick, and I'm gonna go with Milwaukee here. And I think it's close.
It's close, St. Louis. It's close.
I would agree.
Because St. Louis is a very healthy squad, and I don't know, because Pittsburgh, I think at this point is in rebuild because they don't have Josh Harrison anymore, and Chris Archer's terrible now. Chris Archer's not nearly.
Chris Archer and I have a rivalry. He doesn't know it, but I know it. So.
And now lastly, NL West, I'm going to go with the Dodgers.
Give me the Giants. No, I'm totally kidding. It has to be the Dodgers. No offense, Colorado, but it has to be the Dodgers. I don't think any more description is necessary. It's the Dodgers in that division.
So why don't we do? Oh yeah, MVP prediction. Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Who do you got?
I'm going to say Christian Yelich or Anthony Rendon for the NL. And then AL's tough. I'm going to stick with Mookie Betts,
Back to
or
back. Wow.
I am going to say Aaron Judge.
Wow. All
Yeah,
right. For
Aaron.
the NL, for me, I
It's
Anthony
tough.
Rendon has just become such a darling. I did not expect this. I'm gonna go with Paul Goldschmidt,
How do you not expect it? Bryce Harper's gone. He's going to get all the attention now.
but
Obviously, with Max
it's not
Scherzer, but like he's going to get all the attention now.
it's
He's
not
going to be there,
basketball though. I mean,
right?
it's not
But
like
like,
he's gonna touch the ball a lot more. It's still so dependent on everything Anthony Rendon does. I like Anthony Rendon. He's very good. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think Bryce Harper leaving just means he's an MVP candidate instantly. But for the NL, for me, I'm like I said, Paul Goldschmidt. I think that's just such a huge addition into that Cardinals lineup. And then if you pick anybody else in the AL that's not named Mike Trout, I think you're crazy.
I was going to say it. Yeah, I. So yeah, it's going to be between Mike Trout and Aaron Judge, but I think Mike Trout. Let me change that. Mike Trout's going to win by a long shot. In fact,
Whoa, don't disrespect Mookie all of the sudden.
but
Poor guy.
so moving on to Cy Young, who you got?
All right, I'm gonna
Why don't we
give
name?
love. I'm gonna
Let's
give
name
love.
one for
Okay.
NL, one for AL.
All right. Aaron Nola's my guy in the NL.
Okay.
AL. Oh no, you go. Yeah,
NL, I
no, you
got
do NL.
NL. I don't know. I'm gonna say Jake DeGrom.
Okay. This is solid. This is a pick for sure.
And then AL, who do you got?
Come back to me. Who do you have? I'm still thinking on that one. That's so tough.
I think it could be between. It's tough. I'm gonna say between Justin Verlander and Chris Sale.
All right. I am gonna go a little bit rogue again.
Actually,
Oh.
let me name a third. I'm James Paxton. He's the guy to watch.
I agree. I love James Paxton.
In fact, yeah,
I'm
gonna say James Paxton. Actually, get rid of the other two. I'm gonna say James Paxton.
Yeah, forget Chris Sale and Justin Verlander. You guys are terrible.
James Paxton for the AL, and I got Jake DeGrom going back to back for the NL.
All right, so for the AL, I'm going to go with all this talk in the offseason. He didn't get the opening day nod. They gave it to Corey Kluber. I'm going to pick Trevor Bauer here.
Interesting.
And then, yeah, for NL, it has to be Aaron Nola.
A guy that said he's going to pick 1 year of deals the rest of his career. Would you buy that?
No, not at all.
No.
But Trevor Bauer is hilarious. That's part of the reason I'm picking him here. It's the funny vote. All right, let's move on to the NFL.
Okay.
A big retirement happened. Obviously, Rob Gronkowski. What's your
here's my take on that. So I think we saw it coming, and personally, like, he's so injury prone, and he's got 6 rings, 5, 6. He has nothing left to prove. So, and he's going to go down as one of the best tight ends ever, and it's tough. Like, he's a Hall of Fame candidate easily, but knowing that the amount of talent as we've seen in this tight end class, I think they can be fine, and we'll find out as we get closer to our mock drafts. But obviously, Gronk is injury prone. He's got 6 rings. He's nothing left to prove, and I think we saw it coming, and
no, I would agree.
I think he's going to go to WWE. I don't know if that's bold or not, but we've seen him make appearances, and
right.
You've got WrestleMania coming up in a few weeks, about a week, like 2 weeks, week or two. I think it's 2 weeks. I think he's going to make an appearance at WrestleMania, and I don't know if they're going to actually have him sign a contract and make a debut out of him, but I think just the fact like they brought Ronda Rousey in, who now is supposedly, I don't know, rumors are trying to leave. But okay, let's get back to that. Gronk, I think, is going to go to WWE. Another one is And I know we're going to leave our biases off the table. Let's just talk about career-wise. Jordy Nelson, what legacy do you think he leaves on the Packers?
I mean, he's a
And
clear Packer Hall of Famer.
absolutely. And I think, yeah. And yeah. And obviously,
Jordy had a great career, and I think NFL Hall of Fame is. I think there's a big question mark there. I think arguments
it's
can be
tough.
made for and against, but
I don't think he's going to make it. And I think if he does make it, he's very lucky, and it definitely won't be first ballot.
yeah, I would agree
But
with that.
just the progression he's made, and like I know a lot of people have said, and like I guess like you can't really argue. He went from Aaron Rodgers to Derek Carr. So Aaron Rodgers, you could put any receiver on him, and Aaron Rodgers could make like a solid receiver. He had
Unless they
Derek
were
Carr,
one of the 3 rookie receivers last season.
right? Because you can't determine 1 year of talent. How like 1 year
I think Jordy's knees were
really
gone. I think that was the biggest thing. It was just time for him.
right.
It was just his time. I don't really think the team change had as much to do with it as
Mm-hmm.
Father Time did.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of like off season, let's go to free agency. What are the biggest moves that you've seen so far that you like?
That I like. I mean, obviously, what's not to like about the Browns getting
That's big.
Odell?
That's big. Yep.
That's phenomenal.
There's an argument made both ways because there's a lot of people that are saying that the Giants are stupid and like, okay, you're not going anywhere with them. And yeah, you have Eli Manning throwing to you, but they have 2 first-round picks now. And like I think they helped them for the future. And now they're trying to trade like they're going to be in rebuild mode in a few years.
They're already in rebuild mode. They're well into it.
I think this is something to talk about when we get to our later topic.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We'll get there. So
what's another move you liked? What caught your eye?
Tell you what caught mine in a bad way was there's a few. I think Le'Veon Bell played it really stupid. I think he got offered more with the Steelers. So he basically sat out for like what reasoning? He sat out to take a $52.5 million contract. And I don't remember what the Steelers offered him, but I know it was more. It was more.
There is something to say about the Steelers, though. I mean, it seems like something's wrong.
Well, okay.
It seems like something's wrong. And
Le'Veon Bell, obviously not now because I think he's got to prove something. It's Todd Gurley, and I think Le'Veon Bell is still going to be a top 3 to top 3 running back. But Le'Veon Bell deserves to get paid. But if you're the Steelers, I understand why you don't want to pay him. And I think this, I don't know, I want to add this. I really do. But I think we should talk about this at a later time. But Mike Tomlin should get the boot.
He should have got the boot years ago.
He should have got the boot. There's a lot of coaches that should have got the boot years ago. Mike Tomlin, he has 1 year left. So like you could almost call it
this is a conversation for a later episode. Though.
He's almost on the hot seat right now. So I think it helped them a lot to get rid of Bell. And I think the Antonio Brown trade actually struck me probably one of the biggest because what they gave up for him, I'll use Stephen A's quote, a bag of chips and a Coke, because it's exactly what it is. You gave up a 3rd and a 5th round pick for the best wide receiver in the NFL. Idiotic. Just ridiculous. Like, I don't know. And he's going to have Derek Carr throwing to him. And this is going to be something to talk about. And later, Antonio Brown is not going to be the best receiver in the NFL anymore. But we'll talk about that as the NFL season gets closer. Why don't we go towards the draft? So,
Jets are shopping the third pick. Who do you think we should look for with the Jets? Maybe getting that pick.
I'm going to say Dolphins. And I know you've told me this, and I think this is dumb. They're trying to go for Tua for 2020, and why? Like, when is the last time Alabama has produced a quarterback? No, never. So, and I almost made the bold, and we'll see. So, I think if any team should trade up at this point, it should be the Dolphins. And it's tough because I want to have them. I think they should get Dwayne Haskins, but I'm worried how they fit or how he would fit with the Dolphins. And I think Dwayne Haskins fits the best with the Giants, who now, as long as I'm naming the Giants, Josh Rosen. Now, Josh Rosen is on the trade block. And
Allegedly.
Allegedly. So, in my opinion, I'm still going to stand by my comment and say Josh Rosen is going to be a bust because you can't determine 1 year of talent based on how good people are. But if I'm the Giants, I go for Josh Rosen. And we'll talk about Kyler Murray as we go into our mock drafts. And if I'm the Giants, man, I go all in for Josh Rosen. And I think Patriots would be good, but I don't know. And the Giants were interested in him last year. Plus, he has a year under his belt. And, yeah, he had nobody around him. But Josh Rosen, he's not good.
I don't think you can say that yet.
It's tough.
That Arizona team is awful last year.
It's tough.
And it was not Josh Rosen's fault.
And Steve Wilkes did not deserve to get fired either. You can't determine 1 year of coaching the talent. Look at Marvin Lewis. He had 18 years. Now, of those three teams, who should get Rosen?
Oh, I 100% agree that the Giants should go after Rosen. Realistically, I think every other NFL team that doesn't have a bona fide starting quarterback or has even a starting quarterback question, I think everybody should be in on Rosen.
Mm-hmm.
His contract is cheaper. He has already gotten a signing bonus from the Cardinals. I just think the rumor is supposedly they're looking for a third. And I think if you can get Josh Rosen for a third-round pick, you have to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
I like Rosen.
Are you kidding me? Absolutely. So, as long as we're talking about the draft, let's go to our mock draft predictions. Now,
all right.
So, now I feel like that Rosen is on the trade block. I think this is a given. I have number 1, Kyler Murray, which makes me nervous. I like Kyler Murray. I don't think he's going to be a bust, but I don't think he's going to be amazing. And I do a Packers podcast with Cream City Central, and I've said this before. I don't think he's going to be a quarterback we're going to talk about in 5 years. And I think he needs to go to a team that where he sits on the bench for a year.
I would agree.
I think the Raiders or the Giants are the right team for that. Now, this mock draft is based on what I think is going to happen, not what should happen. So number 1 is go ahead.
No, you can finish up and then I'll do mine.
Number 1 is Kyler Murray. How about you?
I refused to believe that the Cardinals are just going to go from trading up for Josh Rosen to trading him and taking quarterback number 1 overall. So I gave them the most talented player in this draft class, and that's Nick Bosa.
Nick Bosa. And that's exactly why I have at number 2, because if you're San Francisco, you have to take the best player available, and it's the best person in this draft is Nick Bosa. That's a given. Number 3, I have Josh Allen.
Whoa. I didn't get to say who I have number 2.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who do you have
Settle
number 2?
down there, Tiger. I have Josh Allen.
Interesting.
Because I think Josh Allen's the second most talented guy in this draft class. And I think San Francisco That would be
That's
such
tough.
a fun duo of D Ford and Josh Allen coming off the edge.
That's tough. Okay. So, okay. Number 3. I have Josh Allen. This was tough because it's between Josh Allen and Quinnen Williams. And after that championship game against Clemson, I know Alabama got railed, but Quinnen Williams is a number 1 worthy player. And you would be surprised. No, you wouldn't be surprised. I've seen mock drafts where Quinnen Williams is drafted 1. And if I'm the Cardinals, and obviously Josh Rosen's quote unquote allegedly on the trade block, if he's not on the trade block and you keep Rosen, yeah, you pick Nick Bosa. But Quinnen Williams, in my opinion, I don't know. It's tough. It's obviously between him and Josh Allen for the second best player in this draft. But Jets, who do you have at number 3?
Quinnen Williams.
Yeah, that was tough.
I think him and Leonard Williams would just be unbelievably awesome to have on the same defensive line.
Yeah. Number 4 to the Raiders, I have Quinnen Williams. Now, this was tough because I had Khalil Mack is gone, and I was very tempted to pick Khalil Mack or Josh Allen as a replacement for Khalil Mack. So I think that could go either way. Now, the Raiders have a lot of things wrong with them because your words, John Gruden ruined this team. Let him deal with it. But now they've got Mike Mayock, who is an NFL draft expert. Now, the Raiders have nobody. They don't have like lethal talent on the inside, and Quinnen Williams is unbelievable. And Quinnen Williams, I think, is going to be lethal. I think he's going to be a guy to watch. Number 4, Raiders. What do you have?
So obviously, I had the top 3 front 7 guys gone. So okay. I had to give them who I believe is the best playmaker out there. They just need playmakers on defense and offense. Well, maybe not on offense anymore as much, but they needed a playmaker on defense, and I think the biggest playmaker left on the board is Devin White out of LSU.
Interesting. Okay.
I just think having a guy like that playing inside linebacker, being the quarterback of your defense, they have the draft capital to go get pass rushers later in the draft. And I just think Devin White is the most talented player left on the board at this point.
Number 5, I have Jonah Williams, the best lineman in this draft. I'll get to another lineman that is my favorite lineman in this draft. But Jonah Williams, I think this is a bold statement, and I think they've compared him to David Bakhtiari, which I think is a very bold statement. But then again, I think it's possible because we've seen him play at Alabama, and he's very lethal and unstoppable. So, and yes, the Buccaneers need a quarterback, and yeah, watch out for them, but they need protection. Their protection is awful. Like, who do you have?
Their defense was a mess, especially their pass defense. I gave him Rashawn Gary out of Michigan. I just think I don't think there's a cornerback or a safety that is worth the top 5 pick in this draft. So
not at all. I agree. So
Gary, they need to do whatever they can to add talent to that defense still.
Right. I'll let you start with this one. Who do you have at number 6?
All right. Now I have who's actually going to go first overall, but I refuse to do it. I have Kyler Murray.
Interesting. Okay.
My reasoning is I think ownership is going to put pressure on Gettleman to use these 2 first-round picks to get excitement back in the fan base after trading arguably the most exciting player in the NFL. And I think Kyler Murray is the guy who does that. And I think if this does end up happening, Kyler Murray is starting at quarterback by probably week 8, just to bring fans to the stadium.
So this could go both ways. So I have Dwayne Haskins, who I'll be honest, none of these quarterbacks I think are going to be franchise quarterbacks. I think Dwayne Haskins is an exception. Um, Let me rephrase that. None of them are going to start right away. None of them should start right away, for the exception of Dwayne Haskins if Eli Manning goes down. Obviously, if Kyler Murray goes to Arizona. But this could change. So I have Dwayne Haskins at 6 to the Giants. But I want to stand by my comment still and say the Giants need to go all in on Josh Rosen. If they don't, Dwayne Haskins is your guy. And Eli Manning signed a signing bonus, basically almost securing his starting job for the year. I mean, who does he have backing him up? He had Geno Smith, who was awful, who hasn't been good since he entered the league.
Davis Webb, and I think Kyle.
Davis Webb.
Kyle, what's his name?
Kyle Lauletta.
Lauletta, yeah, Richmond.
Yeah, so they reached for all these guys. Kyle Lauletta, he was a day 3 pick, right? I believe so.
I would hope so.
Yeah. Davis Webb was a day 2 pick. Davis Webb, I believe, was in the 3rd round.
That sounds right to me.
I think he was in the 3rd round because I remember they reached for him. And how many
David Gettleman's reached for a lot of guys though. Yeah. So I don't really think we should be surprised.
If they don't go Josh Rosen, which they should, which would be the smart move, Dwayne Haskins would be the best quarterback in this draft to back up Eli Manning. And Eli Manning, I think he's going to be a quarterback that's just going to refuse to retire. And yeah, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He has rings, but obviously everyone knows that he's just regressing. He's not good. And Dwayne Haskins at 6. Number 7, who do you have?
This is my favorite pick in my mock draft, just because I think this would be fantastic for player and team. And that's TJ Hawkinson, the tight end out of Iowa, going to Jacksonville. Okay. I think if you give Nick Foles a target like TJ Hawkinson, who will help not only in the past game and give Nick Foles, who you just paid a lot of money to play quarterback, you give him a safety blanket. Now you also help Leonard Fournette in that run game. I just think this would be a home run. And I know a top 8 pick for a tight end sounds like a reach, but if Hawkinson's as good as advertised, I think this would be a home run.
So I'm going to stay on the offensive side. I have Jawan Taylor. The Jags offensive line was probably one of the worst in the AFC. They were awful, absolutely. And Nick Foles needs protection. You need protection for that $88 million quarterback that you just paid for. And yeah, and Hawkinson would be nice, but they need protection bad. So 8 Detroit. I have Devin White. So that defense, I mean, they're about to lose Glover Quinn, but I completely agree. There's no defensive backs that are even worth being in the top 10. But they have no playmakers, even on the inside. They have no playmakers on the front, and they need a powerhouse. And Devin White is your answer. So, I just did a draft profile on Devin White. There's some bold predictions on him. I've seen a NFL comparison to Miles Jack, which makes sense, but I think he's going to be better than Miles Jack. Devin White is easily the best linebacker in this draft. He's one of the most talented players in this draft, which is why I sit him in the top 10. The Lions need more playmakers on the defensive side, and I think Devin White is going to be their answer. I think he's going to help Matt Patricia. He's a defensive-minded coach. I think Devin White's their answer. Who do you have?
I like that. I also went defensive side of the ball, and I went with Clelin Ferrell.
Okay.
Out of Clemson. I think you just paid Trey Flowers a bunch of money to rush the passer, and now if you get Ferrell, it'll help.
Mm-hmm. So Buffalo, I have Rashawn Gary. Um, and this to me wasn't hard just because Kyle Williams retired. And you need another guy off the edge. You need another guy on the inside. And now this is interesting, and we've talked about this before. The NFL players, or I guess the combine, they put Rashawn Gary as an edge. I personally, I think you could put him anywhere in the defensive line, but he was an inside nose tackle in Michigan, from what I recall. But the Bills need a lot of work too, obviously. But I think one of their main needs that they desperately need is guys on the front line on the defensive side, and I think Rashawn Gary, who has just been soaring up the draft boards, I think Rashawn Gary could be a great fit for Buffalo, and I think he could help them a lot, especially a solid replacement for Kyle Williams, who I know is an inside interior guy, but hey, put Rashawn Gary anywhere on the front defensive line, and he will make an impact. What do you got?
I went Jonah Williams, the tackle out of Alabama. I have concerns about Jonah Williams, especially his attitude after hearing the story of Alabama approached him and asked him to play inside, and he said no.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it makes sense. You just get more protection for Josh Allen, who you invested a lot in. So I went with Jonah Williams.
So Denver, who do you got?
This John Elway is. I think he finally gets it right at 10 when he selects Dwayne Haskins out of Ohio State.
Interesting. Okay.
He gets his franchise guy. Flacco is not the answer.
Absolutely
You
not.
bring in Haskins, you let him sit behind Flacco for the year, and then you give Haskins the key. And 2021 and beyond, I think you have your guy in Haskins.
Right. I have Drew Lock. I have said this before. I think Drew Lock is their answer, and I think this is something to talk about later too. I think they needed an offensive-minded coach, and yes, Joe Flacco is definitely not the answer at all. And I think Drew Lock is, and now that Kyler Murray and Dwayne Haskins are both off the board and mine, I think it only makes sense to draft the third best quarterback in this draft, which is Drew Lock. Number 11, I have Montez Sweat. Now, yes, he has a heart condition, but I don't think that's going to drop him a whole lot. I think he'll go in the top 15 at worst. And he's still it's a minor heart condition. They're saying that he still performs the same way he performed at Mississippi State. And Vontaze Burfict's gone, and they need another impactful player on that defense. Who do you got?
Cody Ford out of Oklahoma. I'm not sure how they're gonna go. This is the first time they've had a regime change in a while.
Yeah.
So I think Cincinnati's kind of a huge question mark here, but I put Cody Ford. I think he can play guard, and he could eventually end up moving to tackle if you needed him to. And I just think he's a pretty good player.
Mm-hmm.
They just need good players. They need a lot. The Bengals are a mess too. I could see them go Drew Lock here. I could see them do a lot of things. Yeah. So I just went with Cody Ford.
So, number 12. Who do you got?
Brian Burns out of Florida State. I love him. This one may have been a little bit of bias slipping through here just because I really want the Packers to draft him, but I do think it makes sense. I know they signed 2 edge rushers in the Smiths, but
they need a guy.
They still need one more. And I think Burns here is just too good to pass up on.
Right. And So my guy, I went on the offensive side, and we said this before we went on air. Good has less pressure off of him, and I went T.J. Hawkinson.
Wow.
And a lot of people are talking down on Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham was never used right. Jimmy Graham he hasn't been used right since he was in New Orleans. Like, he wasn't nearly as good in Seattle, which, like, you wonder why is because they don't use him right. He wasn't used right with Mike McCarthy, and now with Matt LaFleur, I think he's gonna flourish with Matt LaFleur, especially now if you bring in T.J. Hawkinson, who is arguably the best tight end in this draft. I think, and like another guy for Rodgers to throw to, it's amazing. It's going to be great. 13. I got Ed Oliver, Miami. So I was tempted to trade up to 5 to get Dwayne Haskins for the Dolphins. But they need a defensive lineman bad. They don't have Robert Quinn anymore. They need a dude, and from what I've read today, people are viewing Ed Oliver as a outside linebacker. So, which is interesting. And his pro day was unbelievable. It was great, and I think that's definitely going to show on the field. And what it was a 4.7, or what was 4.74, right? What was it? His 40?
I think it was some had him at 4.75, some had him at 4.71 in that range. So
Okay.
whatever it was for his size, it's ridiculous.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Who do you got? 13.
I have Juwan Taylor.
Interesting.
They lost Juwan James in free agency to Denver. And what's more fun than replacing one Juwan offensive lineman with a different one?
Mm-hmm.
He's out of Florida. I like the fit here.
Yeah.
You got to protect Ryan Fitzmagic. You can't let him get bounced off the turf.
Yeah. 14, Atlanta Falcons. Who do you got?
Eddie Oliver. After his pro day, I wanted to change this quick, but I didn't have time.
So
I have Eddie Oliver.
I'm going to make a statement, and Ed Oliver is a top 5 to top 7 talented player in this draft, but it's the teams that are in that order. So if you had a team like, let's say, Atlanta, who are in the top 7, and Rashawn Gary's even gone, even all your like Josh Allen, Quinnen Williams, Ed Oliver is your best possible player. Ed Oliver, and I know some people say mock drafts are irrelevant, but if you look at the beginning of the season, Ed Oliver was the top 5 pick. And I think Ed Oliver is going to have a very successful career. 14, I have Greedy Williams.
I like that for them.
And I don't want to say it's a reach, but they need corners desperately.
Yep.
And Greedy Williams it's between him and DeAndre Baker, who are the best corners in this draft. And DeAndre Baker will come later. Greedy Williams he just like, especially coming, like, I know college, NFL, completely different game, but you're coming out of the SEC, the best conference in college football. So, and he's on a winning team. So, like, he's coming from a winning atmosphere. And Atlanta's defense, they just fight, like, their D coordinator's gone. Dan Quinn is now the head coach and D coordinator. And Dan Quinn was successful in Seattle when he was D coordinator. So if I were them, I would have found a head coach while they were at it, while they were still available. But I think if Dan Quinn I think Dan Quinn is a possibility. I think he can turn them around, their defense, and I think Greedy Williams is a great start. Number 15, and you and I don't like him. I would take the other Ole Miss guy over him. I've got DK Metcalf at 15.
Wow.
Um, there's a lot of mock drafts that have him at top 10. I don't think he. I don't want to say he's going to be a bust, but I think he's a lot. I think he's very overhyped. But Washington needs a receiver bad, and it's tough because personally, I think the best receiver in this draft is N'Keal Harry or even Marquise Brown. But I think, especially after you lost, they don't have anyone, and they lost Jamison Crowder to the Jets, and they have Jordan Reed, which would be nice, but you need more targets to throw to, and I think DK Metcalf could be the guy, but I think he's going to be overrated. But he's a wide receiver, and the way he produced in the NFL Combine, I think opened a lot of scouts' eyes. So I've got DK Metcalf at 15. Who do you have?
I have Greedy Williams to pair with Josh Norman. I think that'd be a pretty good cornerback tandem. I just think they should focus more on defense. Their offense is going to be a mess this season with Case Keenum, right? They traded for Case Keenum, if I remember correctly.
Case Keenum, yep.
So, yeah, I pretty much think they should just take the L on offense and go defense here with Greedy Williams.
Yeah. So, number 15, this was easily a given just because Cam Newton could be shut down, but boy, he just got beat. And they need offensive line, and I've got Cody Ford. And this was easily a given because didn't the Panthers' offensive line give up one of the most sacks in the league? They had it had to have been up there. Like
Cam Newton got rocked a lot.
Cam Newton got rocked, and if you're a Panther fan, it would not be fun to watch. And I think Cody Ford, there's a lot of reaches. I think some of these offensive linemen are going to be reaches, and I think Cody Ford has unbelievable talent, and I think he's a guy that can play anywhere on the offensive line. Who do you have?
I also thought along the same lines, and I gave him Andre Dillard out of Washington State, and I think Dillard would just be fantastic. Yep. Like you said, you pretty much nailed it right on the head.
You need a guy that can play all four sides, and I like Jonah Williams. Jonah Williams is probably the best offensive lineman in this draft, but if you're talking about guys that can play all four sides, Jonah Williams is huge. It's Andre Dillard or Cody Ford. And yeah, Carolina was a given offensive line. Another Giants pick from the Browns. I have Cleveland Farrell. This was tough because they also need offensive line, but they don't have Olivier Vernon anymore, and I think they need another impactful guy off the edge. And I think Cleveland Farrell, especially with any edge rusher in this draft, you can't go wrong. And these guys could go anywhere. And I think the only one that's given is Josh Allen in the top 5, where I would be very surprised. 5 to 7, I would be very surprised if he falls out. But other than him, every other edge rusher could fall anywhere. So I have Cleveland Farrell as a replacement for Olivier Vernon, who was traded to the Cleveland Browns. Minnesota Vikings, you said this before, from the Panthers, my favorite lineman, Andre Dillard. Washington State native. Like I said before, Kirk Cousins is overrated, and he also got beat. And their run game was not strong at all because they were beat on the front. Their front line was beat a lot. And I think Andre Dillard, they need a guy that can play all 5 sides of that line. And I think Andre Dillard is sitting at 18. I think he's well deserving. I think 18 is the perfect spot for him to sit, and I would be very surprised if he falls past 20. Number 19.
Whoa.
I'm sorry, Minnesota.
Yeah, I have him taking Christian Wilkins to replace Sheldon Richardson inside on that defensive line. Sheldon Richardson had a good year for them, so I definitely think they should find a way to replace him.
Mm-hmm. So Tennessee, I have Brian Burns. It's just tough because you could also go offensive line because Mariota's hurt all the time. They just traded for Tannehill, who's coming off a torn ACL. But they don't have anyone. They lost Brian Arakpo, who just retired. But it's tough. Like any of these edge rushers could fall anywhere. And the best available on the board for mine is definitely Brian Burns. And I wrote an article on him. He had the second fastest 40 time. I believe it was a 4.5. He had the second fastest 40 time of the edge rushing class in the draft. And obviously we know number 1 was Montez Sweat, but he beat out Josh Allen. Brian Burns is one of the fastest edge rushers in this draft. And he will make an impact on wherever team he goes. Who do you have?
Same lines I went along with, and that's Montez Sweat.
Mm-hmm.
I just think Tennessee would very much benefit from grabbing another talented guy off the edge with Harold Landry.
Absolutely. Now, I almost think this is a reach, but they need it desperately. I have Devin Bush to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And from his combine was exceptional. He's been soaring off the boards the closer you get to this draft. He's really fluctuated, I'll be honest, because you've seen him in the top 10 to top 15, but then you don't even see him. You see him fall out to the mid-second round. But now all of a sudden he's back. And I know they need a receiver, and my other choice was going to be Marquise Brown, the cousin of Antonio Brown. But they need another guy, and I think Devin Bush and TJ Watt, I think that'd be a lot of fun to watch. With Bud Dupree, that young core. That's going to be great. What do you have?
I gave him DeAndre Baker out of Georgia. Okay. I think they're another team that could go many ways here, but I just think Baker's probably the most talented guy left, and another playmaker on defense for him.
You're learning behind Joe Hayden too.
Yeah, and who knows if Joe Hayden's going to stay healthy again this season.
Right, but Joe Hayden's a great corner to go behind. So, number 21. Now, they lost Earl Thomas, and I have Nasir Adderley.
So do I.
So, and it was tough because the defensive back offseason class was loaded with where these guys all went. And Earl Thomas is a huge loss, and that Legion of Boom is almost gone. KJ Wright's going to be up. Bobby Wagner is the only guy left. And Nasir, I've switched because the best safety in this draft, in my opinion, was Deontay Thompson. But after that college football playoff, that championship game, he didn't impress me at all. He didn't go to the combine, which but I think that hurt it a lot too because I've seen him fall to the third round. Nasir Adderley is the best safety in this draft, and he's going to start right away. If not, he'll definitely be put in competition. He's a starting safety in Seattle. And you have Adderley as well?
Yep. Like you said, they've lost everybody pretty much from that secondary. So now I think with him, Griffin, and Trey Flowers in the secondary, you can really start to fully rebuild that Legion of Boom. He's a playmaker in the second half.
Right.
Second half of the field, that is. I just think that's a great pickup for them. It's a good fit.
Right. Baltimore, who you got?
They lost C.J. Mosley in free agency, so I replaced C.J. Mosley with Devin Bush.
Interesting. Okay. So the Ravens need wide receivers bad, and they failed to pick one up in free agency. So I have the best wide receiver in this draft, in my opinion, N'Keal Harry. So, and this was also tough. Who do you have for the Houston Texans?
He's my favorite cornerback in the draft. He's got long arms, and I think he's a good replacement for Kevin Johnson, who they just cut, and that's Rocky Sin.
Yeah, he's soaring up too. I have offensive line was a big problem for them, and yet again, this might be a reach. It was between him and Chris Lindstrom, and I've got Garrett Bradbury.
Wow.
They need linemen bad, and I think Bradbury. They need interior linemen, and I think Bradbury could play the guard, center. Center's his primary, but they need interior linemen. Houston, I'm sorry, did you say Houston already?
Yeah, Oakland. Oakland at 24.
I have Noah Fant.
Okay, I like that.
So I feel like a lot of Oakland's picks I feel like are given because I think they're given. So they lost Jared Cook to the Saints, and they don't have anyone. And Noah Fant is arguably the two Iowa tight ends are the best tight ends in this draft. And TJ Hawkinson's taken, and obviously both of our boards. So Noah Fant is the next guy up. Who do you got?
I gave him Dexter Lawrence. Again, they just need playmakers, and I think Dexter Lawrence out of Clemson could be a playmaker on that defensive line with Mo Hurst. And now you have Devin White behind you to clean up every mess.
Mm-hmm. So, Philly, who do you got? Now,
we both actually had Josh Jacobs, but
he was
right before we went on. The Eagles traded for Jordan Howard from Chicago.
Right.
So we both feverishly changed, and I changed to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson from Florida, the defensive back.
Okay.
They had so many injuries.
Yep.
In that secondary, and I just think
I stayed with the defensive back as well, and I went DeAndre Baker. I love the Georgia products, and I think DeAndre Baker it's tough, but I think DeAndre Baker could be the best quarterback in this draft. So 28 is next, or I'm sorry, not 28. 26. I have Byron Murphy.
Okay.
This quarterback class, like, I 3 to 4 corners in the first round sounds about right, and I think the Colts need help desperately on their secondary. They have nobody, and all they have is Malik Hooker, and they desperately need more help. So I have Byron Murphy. Who do you have?
I know they signed Devin Funches, but it was only a 1-year deal. And aside from him, Eric Ebron, and T.Y. Hilton, I still think you need to give Andrew Luck more weapons. You fix that offensive line for him. So now you give him N'Keal Harry at wide receiver. So you have N'Keal Harry, T.Y. Hilton, Devin Funches, and Eric Ebron, and that's a really good stable for Luck to throw to. I just like that fit.
Chargers 28. Who do you got?
You skipped the Raiders at 27.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have DeAndre Baker to the Raiders. No, I didn't. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we did. I have Josh Jacobs.
Okay.
Josh Jacobs 27 to the Oakland Raiders. Marshawn Lynch, who knows about him? Because I think he'll start week 1. but from what I've read, he's skipping practices, and I he just has a big ego that I just don't like at all. And they need like the Raider. It's tough, um, but I don't think this running back class is impressive at all. But the Raiders need one desperately. They lost a lot. They don't have anyone literally, and Latavius Murray was on the got. They lost him to the Vikings a few years ago. They brought Marshawn Lynch out of retirement, who probably Raiders fans thought he was going to be a top 10 running back. No. And I think Josh Jacobs could be – I think he could be good. I don't think he's going to be amazing, but I think he could be the answer to help that run game get back on their feet again. Who do you have, 27?
You had this pick for the Raiders a couple picks ago. Noah Fant. I've said it twice
Okay.
now, and again, they just need playmakers, and they lost Jared Cook, like you said, to the Saints. So it just makes sense.
Right. 28, I have Jerry Tillery. Now, this guy, I feel like he's kind of sneaking his way up into the late first round. I watched more of his film yesterday, and he's explosive, and that it's tough because if you're going interior, if you disregard Quinnen Williams and Rashawn Gary and Ed Oliver, if you got the two Clemson guys, Jerry Tillery, you can't go wrong with either of these guys because they're all explosive, and I think Jerry Tillery, it's almost a given because the Chargers need help on that interior defensive line. Who do you have?
I know they just signed Tyrod Taylor to a 2-year deal, but I still think that quarterback's a position they should look to the future for. So Drew Lock would make sense. You get the guy for Phillip Rivers to groom.
Yep.
You give Locke a couple years to sit and learn under Rivers.
Mm-hmm. So number 29, I went on the defensive side for the Chiefs. I went Dexter Lawrence, and which is interesting because he it's weird because you've seen him fall a bit because of his doping thing or his drug test. So he was out for one of the college football playoff games. Um, he's definitely still first round worthy, and I don't think scouts should overlook that. All right, I'm sorry. I think scouts should overlook that because he that does not determine his talent. And the Chiefs lost D Ford, which it's a big loss. And yeah, he was a key part of that loss against the Chargers. I'm sorry, it was the Chargers, right? Yes, the Chargers. No, I'm sorry, not the Chargers, the Chiefs or the Patriots. But they don't have D Ford. They don't have Justin Houston. You need another guy to step up on that defensive side, and I think Dexter Lawrence is a great person or a great player to have for that. Who do you have?
I don't think they ever really replaced Marcus Peters last year, and now Steven Nelson went and signed with Pittsburgh. So I went with Byron Murphy, the corner out of Washington. They've had success with corners out of Washington before with a guy like Marcus Peters. And like you said, defense is a big need, and I think they could add anywhere on that that defense. So I went with Byron Murphy here.
So 30, this is the Saints pick. Now Green Bay's. I have Dalton Reisner. And the more I watch this film, the more I like him. And I'm going to keep the bias away. But the Packers need linemen desperately. And Balaga is very unreliable. He's always injury prone. I don't remember the last season where he's played an entire season without getting hurt. And Dalton Reisner's a guy that can play all five sides of the line, all five positions of the offensive line. And I think he's a guy to watch out for. And yeah, they signed Billy Turner. And I'll say all five positions again, but like the contract they gave him wasn't bad, but I think they signed him. It was just depth. You needed depth bad. But I think Dalton Reisner and like this O-line class for this draft is deep. And I think Dalton Reisner is the next guy available, like the best person available on my board, and definitely is. So who do you have at 30?
I went with Hollywood Brown here. I think this is more of a Rodgers. Obviously there was growing pains, I'll say, with the young wide receivers, and I don't know really if those three guys, if any of them are going to be a solid number 2 in the NFL, but I think for sure Brown could be that guy. And I think Rodgers probably has said things in the past or during this offseason about getting him another reliable wide receiver. And I think Brown could be that guy.
Right. This one for me was a given. I have Christian Wilkins because they're about to lose Ndamukong Suh, and they need another guy in that interior defensive front to make an impact. And yeah, they signed Clay Matthews, and I think that was big. But then again, he's out of his prime. He's kind of washed up. But they need an interior guy, and they're about to lose. Ndamukong Suh's gone. He's a free agent, and he's most likely not going to come back. And I think this is given. They need an interior guy, and Christian Wilkins is your guy. Who do you got?
I went with Chris Lindstrom.
Okay.
They just lost Roger Saffold to Tennessee, and I definitely think they need to worry the most about that offense and Goff. I think you could put anybody next to Aaron Donald and things would be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think replacing Saffold should be the number one target on the agenda here.
Mm-hmm. This last one was also a given. I have Irv Smith.
So do I.
Especially after Gronk's retirement. Now, if he didn't retire, it would have been tough. I might have went defensive side. But this is given. Irv Smith's big. It's another big Alabama tight end they've produced. O.J. Howard and now Irv Smith. But this is given. T.J. Hawk's gone. Fant off the board. Irv Smith is the third best tight end in this draft. Irv Smith is a given replacement for Gronk.
Yeah, there's not a lot of explaining to do on that. Why it's Irv Smith.
Exactly. And like they need a big guy. Gronk was huge, and Irv Smith is built too. And I think Irv Smith could make quite an impact in that New England offense. Especially, I think he could thrive. I think he'd thrive pretty well with Josh McDaniels in that offense. Now, before we end, we've got Team of the Week and Player or Coach of the Week. So now, Team of the Week, I have Gonzaga. Now, they're usually out early in this tournament, but they're a different team this year. Brandon Clark has been unstoppable, and yeah, they almost lost to. They were within only a 5-point lead against Florida State tonight, but they came back on top. And Duke, they're impressive, but I think Gonzaga has been the most impressive team, number one team in this tournament, let alone the entire tournament. And yeah, they're definitely a different team this year, and that's why I have them winning the entire thing.
My team of the week, I put Oregon. They're the only double-digit seed left in the tournament. They came off of winning a conference tournament. I just think, all in all, they had a great week. Mm-hmm. And then my player of the week was I went with D'Angelo Russell because he got to knock the Lakers officially out of playoff contention. He put that X next to their name in the standings, and they traded him for nothing. So I just think that was huge. I get the pick was Kyle Kuzma, but it was still a late first round pick.
And mine was, I'm going to name, I named it before, is reigning NL Cy Young is Jake DeGrom. He is still under contract, but he got a 5-year, $137 million extension. And at that age, for pitchers, it's very rare. He's 30, so he's gonna be 36 by the time he's done with that contract. And don't get me wrong, like Cy Young guy, he's at the prime of his career, but he's 30, and giving him that amount of money, that's rare. And it shows that the Mets really see something in him.
Well, that's all we have for you today. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook at C&S-Sports Podcast and as well on Instagram.
And don't forget to follow us on our personal accounts at Christian Ryan John and Sam Deering, or Sam_Deering for our Instagram. And then hit us up on Twitter. My username is Sam Deering68. And Christian, Twitter?
At I love Brent Suter.
Funny. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week.